doing? How are you guys doing? Ooh, missed you guys. Missed you guys. When Formula One teams cheat, don't cheat. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Unless you have to. Unless you have to. But don't cheat. But very, very interested to see what goes down. First thing first, hopefully you guys are doing well, amazing, absolutely splendid and wonderful. Very, very looking forward to this because I'm not really surprised. There's been instances in which F1 teams do cheat. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. But anyway, let's go and get into the video, man. Shout out to Man Driver 61 again with the video. Y'all know what to do. Don't forget to like the video and sub to the channel if you are new. Now let's get started.
Freezing fuel, flexible front wings and hidden fuel tanks. F1 engineers always find a clever way to push the limits of the rules. Sometimes they get so close to the limit that it could be considered cheating. However, more often than not, they find an ingenious solution to forge new limits for their designs. Here are some of the genius rule breakers that you have probably never heard of. F1 engineers are specialists at finding gaps in the rules, places where there is room for innovation, areas where you can gain huge advantages on your rivals. One of the best examples of this genius engineering was in 2011, when Red Bull designed their front wing to bend. Watch this. Along the straight, the wing flexes. Then, when the speed comes off in the braking zone, it pops back up again. This was by design, but why did Red Bull do this? It comes down to ground effect, essentially where you can create downforce by bringing a wing closer to the ground. The wing and the ground work together to trap the air. It works as kind of a Venturi tunnel and accelerates the airflow. This creates a low pressure zone, sucking the wing to the ground. But Red Bull used these huge forces to bend the wing, pulling it even closer to the ground and producing even more downforce. However, since the dangerous ground effect cars of the 80s, the FIA have done everything they can to stop people pushing this effect to the limits. This is why there are rules that say the wing has to be at least 75mm above the reference plane of the car. They also have a test to make sure the teams aren't making flexible wings to get around this rule. They actually place 200 kilogram weights on the wing and measure the deflection. If it bends too much, it's illegal. Yet Red Bull's wing flexed a lot, but was completely legal, passing all of the FIA's tests. So how did they do it? They actually got the wing to deflect in different ways depending on the type of load. The edges of the wing would scrape on the track through the corners, creating massive downforce. But on the straights, when the aero loads were at their highest, the wing would actually twist, reducing wing angle and shedding drag down the straights. Carbon fibre was what made this all possible. It's made up of several layers of woven fibres. This is then cured in a resin to hold it all together. A single layer is stronger in the direction of the fibres, so they can use multiple layers in all different directions to make the component strong in multiple directions. This arrangement of layers is called a layup and is often immensely complicated. But put simply, it can cause the material to deform.
Did Buddy say a layup? Like, an actual layup?
Differently depending on the type of load applied to it. For example, if all of the fibres run at 90 degrees to each other, you can have a panel that bends a bit like steel sheet would. You put weight at one end and it bends normally. Now, if we throw a layer in there at 20 degrees or so, when the sheet bends, it also twists. This is why it takes so much development to design strong and light carbon components that deform in the way you would want them to. And Red Bull nailed this. The wing was strong in the directions the test measured, but also deformed perfectly at high speeds to yield a huge performance benefit. When at medium loads, it would bend and gain downforce, but when at top speeds, the enormous loads would actually twist the wing backwards, decreasing the wing angle and shedding drag. This solution was 100% legal and left all the other teams working hard to develop a solution of their own. You can still see this in Formula One nowadays. Back in the height of the turbo era, regulations banned the refueling of cars throughout the...
So Red Bull finesse the system. That's clever. That's why he did mention early on, like, a lot of teams do find, like, peepholes, like little leverage in the way to bypass, the illegal shit, that's not allowed. Like, man, it's pretty technical. Pretty technical. All about, like downforce, stuff like that. It's pretty technical, yeah. Yeah, I like it. I mean, in the the FIA, whatever, they didn't really say shit. I mean, they, you know what I mean? They didn't stop them because there was other teams that were starting to do it until they got rid of it. But I mean, gotta give credit to Red Bull. You know what I mean? They found. I mean, it's cheating. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't really condone cheating, but they found a loophole. They found a loophole.
The race. They also brought in a limit of a 220 litre fuel tank, making it a real struggle to get to the end of the race with the huge 1,400 horsepower turbo engines. The drivers would have to save a lot of fuel by lifting off the throttle at the end of the straight, which is something no driver wants to do. So the teams found another loophole. They realised the only limit was the size of the tank, not how much fuel could go in it. So they used huge cooling towers to cool the fuel to minus 30 degrees Celsius, allowing them to fit up to 250 litres of fuel into a 220 litre tank. It also came with another benefit. It actually increased power. The increased density of the fuel meant that more fuel molecules were being injected into the engine, increasing power, particularly at the start. It was a risky strategy though. The extreme heat of the engines could cause the fuel to warm up and expand. There actually was a risk of fuel tanks exploding, so the drivers tended to push really hard at the start to reduce this. And thankfully we never got to see how this could go wrong. F1 has had minimum weight regulations for a long time, aiming to stop the cars being too light and improve in safety. This came to a head in the turbo era.
That's good though. That's good. Hopefully nothing came from that. But I'm not surprised. Like you said, you constantly racing stuff like that. But my thing is, if you try to go hard, like in the first couple of laps, how much fuel are you gonna have towards the end? You know what I mean? But at the same time, isn't everybody trying to go hard in general? That sounded kind of weird. But anyway, well, and then and like you mentioned, you also got add into the effect of the sun beaming, the temperature hot as shit. But good thing we didn't see like a car just exploding in the middle of a race, you know what I mean? Oh God. But some
teams couldn't afford to run the turbo engines and so were using naturally aspirated versions. It meant they were down on power but weighed the same.
But also, you can also just see how innovating F1 teams are, constantly finding new and improved and better ways to help their teams, you know what I mean? Like, constantly every day finding new ways. How can we make our car better than yesterday? How can we make the engine better than yesterday? How can we make the steering wheel, the air filter, the air flowing through the car, stuff like that? What can we do to improve the car from yesterday? You know what I mean? Like, these guys will probably find some new innovation, and then the following day, you know what I mean? Oh, we probably found something better than that. You know what I mean? Like, F1, and like I said, I realized this is constantly innovating, constantly changing.
As the turbo cars. So they found a genius route around the 580 kilogram weight limit. They fitted huge water tanks to the car with the guise of brake cooling, and whilst yes, they did cool the brakes with water, this wasn't the real reason for them being used. They would brim the tanks to pass the weigh-in before the race. They would then dump all the water in the first few laps of the race and could run underweight for the majority of the race. This was thought to gain them up to 25 seconds over a race distance, bringing them closer to turbo cars on pace. They were then able to get away with it due to one line in the rules. Teams were able to refill cooling fluids after the race. This allowed the cars to come back up to the right weight, and the FIA were none the wiser. Again, there were no rules stopping this at the time and was 100% legal. However, as soon as the FIA figured out what was going on, they began weighing the cars in the condition that they finished the race. That put a stop to it, at least until 2005. BAR Honda were caught for a similar thing. They had a secret 6 kilogram fuel tank that would help them meet the minimum weight, but they could also use the fuel during the race. As far as the FIA was concerned, this was cheating and they were banned for 2 races.
Damn.
Now, this last one is closest to the line and they were busted live on TV. We all know starts are incredibly important in F1, and back in the late 90s, some of the teams found a genius way to gain an edge. They figured out how the race starts work. The race director, after checking everything is good to go, triggers the start light sequence. One by one the lights turned on, then all 5 hold for a set period of time and then go out to start the race. However, the teams discovered that the trigger to start the light sequence was a radio signal. After some reverse engineering of the timing, the teams used this signal to play an audible beep in the driver's ear exactly 100 milliseconds before the lights were to go out. This essentially gave the drivers perfect reaction time. The FIA soon caught wind of this and
Ain't that
conducted
hacking?
an absolutely...
Our team's hacking the system? That shit's hacking me. I ain't on cap. They hacking. They hacking me. Hold up, man.
Reverse engineering of the timing, the teams used this signal to play an audible beep in the driver's ear exactly 100 milliseconds before the lights were to...
It's either they're hacking or they're finessing the system. Again, F1 teams, they find ways to win.
...go out. This essentially gave the drivers perfect reaction time. The FIA soon caught wind of this and conducted an absolutely genius way to find out who was doing it. For the 1999 European Grand Prix, all the drivers lined up on the grid for a normal start. But the race director had changed the start sequence, and crucially, without telling the teams. They had inserted a random amount of time between all the lights being lit and the lights going out. The result was perfect. Frentzen, Hakkinen and Coulthard all jumped the start in perfect unison. Busted. We have made several videos about the genius ways F1 engineers have innovated their way around the rules and come up with some genius designs. Check out this playlist. Some of you may be wondering about this sign behind me.
Dude's a stud. I do like a lot of these F1 channels, man. They do a very, very good job of explaining everything. A very, very good job of explaining everything. But man, you know what I mean? Air filters. Cheating, Jesus, they don't care. They do not care, man. They find a way. They will find a way to win. Anyway, you guys don't get like it, so comment below your guys' thoughts and reactions. We'll see you guys later.